Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. Let's do this. Now, this is going to be a little bit different. A couple of you asked this, and so we're going to look back at 2021 and 2020. And so this is going to be a retrospect look at my top games from 2020, because I haven't done my 2021 list yet. But let's take a look back. One, because my video quality is much better now, so don't look at that video. But I have a list of my top 10 games from 2020. And let's take a look. Where are they at? Are they still in my collection? What are my thoughts on them now? Because, the hotness is the hotness. People put out like top 50 lists every year, and it's like, oh, okay, I manipulated the ranks. And someday I'll do that too. Maybe this year. Maybe halfway through 2022, I'll do a top 50 or something like that. But that's not what I'm specialized at. That's not what I'm good at. So let's just look back at what we have done in the past and let's critique that. So, without further ado, the honorable mention, I didn't actually... Oh, I did grab. Honorable mention at number 11 was Mandala. And this is a two-player masterpiece. And if that doesn't tell you enough, obviously it's still in my collection. And you just have these mandalas you're playing one of the various colors on. You can only have one color on each of the sides. And so whoever has the most on the side gets the first pick in the middle. And then they each get moved to your scoring area. And they're each worth points progressively. And it just is a beautiful two-player game. There is nothing like it that I've played, and it is standing the test of time without a doubt. This is like almost a forever game. Again, as a two-player only game, again, I don't have a lot of those, but this is a beautiful game. Number 10 on the list is no longer in my collection, and that is Kingdom Rush. Kingdom Rush, Kickstarter backed, and Lucky Duck Games. I'm a big fan of Lucky Duck Games, and I almost backed the second one, but I thought the second one was just a better iteration of the first one. But when I was playing it, I definitely thought it was better at the lower player counts, especially like 1 or 2. Because otherwise it was a little bit alpha gaming. It was a little bit too much, I can tell everybody what to do almost, instead of a little bit of everything cooperative. And again, not a bad game, a great game, but it was a little too puzzly as well. Like, there was one optimal way, especially with the first one, that you either did it that way or you kind of failed. And I'm not a big fan of the min-max optimization puzzles that do not allow for as much adaptation. And as good as that game is, I didn't want to play it because of that. Like, I would totally be up for it if someone else had it, especially the second one, which I think is going to just be a better edition of it overall. And I don't think you needed the first edition in the first place, because I don't see both of them, needing or meeting a different need in the same shelf. But I would be totally up for it again. I mean, it's a great game. I have no problems about that. Production is top notch. But it just wasn't for me. So I had to I ended up selling it, actually. So that was number 10. Number 9. Number 9 is still in my collection as well, if I can find it here. Number 9 is Adventure Mart. You may have not heard of this. This is sort of more of a cutesy version of Bargain Quest, only a little bit deeper than Bargain Quest 2. This is from Hub Games, and this thing has flown under the radar. I can't believe this hasn't gotten more attention. It's probably because it's from a small publisher, but this game takes Bargain Quest and just makes it better. You have multiple different elements. You're wiping the markets between rounds, so you don't have to worry about the stale markets cluttering things up. You're hiring your workers, you're getting items, you're getting bonuses for the store in terms of what you're doing. I'll be completely frank with this. I haven't really played it. I didn't really play it at all in 2021. But I think it deserves a spot in my collection right now because I don't have anything else like it in terms of the market and the manipulation of making your own store like that. And it's just a really solid game, and it's a small shelf space as well. It's a card game, so it's probably going to stay for right now. Do I see myself being forever on this? I don't know. But I could see myself going either way, but that's kind of where my thoughts are right now. Number 8. Number 8 is a forever game. Now, again, the question always is, do you need both? Because I have the King of Tokyo, a yellow dark version, but I also have the original, not the theme colorization, change a monster in the box sort of thing, with the power-up expansion up on the top shelf in the closet behind me. And I like this just because it's more streamlined. I like it just because it works really, really well. So you don't have to have 2 boxes because everything doesn't really fit nicely with the insert, which I should probably just toss out more inserts. But I'm like a sentimental person when it comes to like the little plastic inserts that people put in these games in the first place for shipping purposes, because that's what most of them are actually used for. But this one has it all. It has the powers. It has the dice Yahtzee. I mean, it's Kaiju dice Yahtzee in a nutshell with asymmetric powers. Only with this game, it allows you to buy the powers instead of just randomly getting assigned to you with the power-up expansion. And that's the only problem with the power-up expansion, and that's why I think ultimately this is going to replace it in my collection, or at least in my playing on the table. Because even with the power-up expansion, sometimes you get ones that are just worthless, or some are just not balanced. And with the expansion characters like that are like the promos, there were no power-ups ever put out for those as well. That would be awesome, but there just weren't. So that's why this is still there. And again, this is a forever game. It's not going to be the most critically acclaimed. It's not going to suit everybody. But in terms of games that you can explain to everyone and do it really fast and really overhead, everyone uses like Dice Throne nowadays. This is mine. So there you go, number 8. Now, number 7. Number 7 is still back on the shelf here because it's a little bit of a larger game. Iwari. This is probably one of the most beautiful looking games in my collection. This area control, elemental, landscape game. A reimagining of several other games. If I can remember them, I'll put them in the actual comments. I think it's like, I don't remember. I'll put it right, blasting words across my face right now. But this is probably, like I said, one of the most beautiful games when you look at this in terms of area control that I've ever seen. The biggest problem I had with it was some of the totems that you could get as like bonuses to your scoring were a little bit unbalanced. And just tossing them out or modifying how you use them, I think, is the easiest fix. Now, there was this whole color snafu of the little totems themselves, where one of the colors just wasn't, the right color. I mean, if you look at this really quickly, there's 2 oranges, essentially. Like, can you tell the difference between those 2 colors on the camera there? You can't? Well, no. It's hard even in person. But again, the artwork and the aesthetic is probably second to very few games, if any, in my collection as a whole. And again, as a non-area control person, it has to be something that I really enjoy to keep it. So I did. Am I going to keep it forever? Again, because it's an area control, because there is that slight nuance with the totems, the boosts, I don't know. It needs more plays for me to figure that out, but for right now, it's not going anywhere. So that's why it's number 7. Now, number 6, I only grabbed one of the expansions because the other big box is awkward. It's right behind the camera. I just said, you know what, this is good enough. Stygian Society. And this is one of the 2 expansions for it, the Cursed Library. This is a completely different dungeon crawler. This is a vertical dungeon crawler where you're kind of going up a level and you're trying to get to the top of the tower with your hero where you're gaining powers, and it's just done in a completely different manner. With the enemies are sort of in 2 rows and you're attacking them, but you're also modifying the cubes in the tower that you're doing. So it reminds me of a lot of another game on this list of dropping cubes down a tower. But in order to activate the powers that your heroes have, enough of your color cube have to get to the bottom. And sometimes you're not able to do that. Sometimes you're just stacking it up for the next person's turn or the person's turn after that. But also you're dropping bad guy cubes each turn as well. And if they get enough, they activate their powers. So it's a very interesting dynamic. The difficulty ramps up, especially when we get to the end. And the end bosses are pretty tough, but some of the abilities are not as balanced as you may want, but who cares? It's a heck of a lot of fun. And as a pseudo dungeon crawl, there's nothing else like it, especially with the tower drop in my collection. And because it's a lot lower in terms of rules overhead, although the games can be a little bit lengthier because you're going up like 6 levels, so you have to do this like 6 rounds. There's a lot to manage sometimes by the time you get all those powers, so you're remembering like what phase and how they're all interacting and how you can mitigate all these things. So there's a lot there. And it's just easier to play though. It's easier to play than a lot of the other ones. So that's another reason I don't see this going anywhere in my collection. Speaking of things not going anywhere in my collection, at number 5, Cosmic Frog. I'm going to give a big shout out to Devious Weasel Games here. They sent me a copy of this game before it was out at retail when I had like 200 subscribers. And so they went out on a limb and said, hey, yeah. And I played it, and I am in love with these 2-mile-high frogs in a cosmic space, eating tiles and regurgitating them, scoring sort of way. There's nothing else out there like it. It's apparently hard to get now. And again, it's a crazy game. Again, I haven't played it at all in 2021. But do you think it's going anywhere? No, heck no. It's crazy. It's exciting. It's completely different. Setup is, a little bit difficult. Setup's a little bit long when you're stacking those tiles up, but there's nothing else like it that I've played. And again, that's why it's always going to have a spot in my collection, even though it's not going to get played nearly as much as it deserves, because this is an absolutely massive random game of potentially high amounts of take that a lot of people aren't going to like, but suits me and my group perfectly. And that's why it was at number 5, and that's why it's still here. Number 4. This one is a bit divisive. I don't even know if I actually published my review of this. I think I might have actually done it and never actually published it. And this is really heavy box for the smaller size that it is. And this is the second edition of Machina Arcana. This is a completely different dungeon crawl where it's sort of Cthulhu-esque in terms of dark and thematically dripping that way. But it is completely unlike anything else that you have ever played, because you are more running from everything and only when cornered and have no other options, attacking or fighting off things. And the biggest dilemma that comes with it is the rulebook is just not good. Now, the third edition is coming out soon, and this was sort of a little bit divisive as well when it came to Kickstarter with the third edition with the next expansion, which I ended up backing, which is supposedly probably going to be in my hands in the next couple months. But they had a third edition shortly after this second edition came out on Kickstarter, like a couple months, like 3, 4, 5 months. And then they said, kind of makes some big changes, and we're not going to offer upgrades for the second edition people, but you can buy a new third edition and we'll give you a couple bucks off. It was more than a couple bucks, but you know what I'm saying. And then they got a lot of pressure, and actually they turned that around. They said, actually, you know what, we will offer the upgrade pack separately, and we will do it that way, and you can mix and match. And so I ended up doing it, because underneath this rulebook, which apparently is going to get a much needed overhaul, even the first edition to the second edition, now still you're doing a second edition to a third edition. I mean, this is why this is not higher up on my list and more wanting me to play, because it's a slog to learn right now. So if I can get a better updated rulebook and an easier streamlined thing that makes me want to play it like Stygian, well, yeah, this game is going to be great. It's not going anywhere in my collection, but it's also not getting played anytime soon either. This is a very expensive paperweight, if you will, right now, and it deserves more. This is probably one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated dungeon crawl out there. And I put that out there as a disclaimer for people that are super interested. But you need to know both sides of it. The steampunk-esque aesthetic, that's a tongue twister. You don't know how many takes it took for me to say that, is highly underrated. I love the steampunk look, and its mechanisms actually work really well if the ambiguity would be, cleared up significantly. But that's why it was there, and it's staying right now as well. Number 3. Number 3 is sitting right back up there next to number 7. So I didn't even have to pull that one out from anywhere else. And that's, I'm not sure I should pull this one out. Glen 2 Chronicles. What can I say? This has me as a convert for more of a Euro mechanism. Now, I know it's not a rondel. I described it previously as a rondel, but it is more of a go-around action selection. And you have these tiles in a square, and the person who is further back goes until they are no longer the furthest in the back. And you're laying these tiles down, and they're activating the tiles around them, and you have to have your workers in a location of where you can put them. And there's expansions up the Godzooks. I sorely was tempted by the Highlands expansion, but I just couldn't do it, not having played like any of the expansions in the base game alone yet, because the base game alone is more than enough. It's a logistical nightmare in terms of when you get it and organizing it, but boy, is it a fantastic, fabulous game. This is probably, again, a game that is under a lot of people's radar just due to price alone and availability at times, but this is a fantastic game. I have no problem saying this would easily probably be in my top 10 or 20 games as well of all time. So clearly it's still here. Now, what was, in case you forgot, number 1 and number 2? Now, interestingly enough, I imported both these games, and I said, look, I'm a new channel. No one was watching me at that point. These were my top games. People are going to love these. I know people are going to love these. And now, as people are putting out their top games of 2021, both of these are making appearances, or very high appearances. Now, number 2, Nidavellir. I still don't have the expansion. I pre-ordered it, I think, and it just is in a pre-order combination of other games that aren't released yet, I think. One that was late released, and so it's still delayed. But this is, the auction sort of esque set collection game. It is much better at higher player counts. People are like, this is a very good game. I played it with 2 people. Well, yeah, it's a best at probably 4 people, better at 3 than 2. And it just is amazing. I love it. That's balanced. The factions work. Adding the expansion just is going to add another way of dynamically balancing it as well from Feldian point scoring, if you will, but with cards. And pick your poison and go that route. And the heroes are just numerous enough that you can go any way you want and pivot when you need to if someone else goes after what you want. And the bidding system of increasing your coins to change how you can offer is just great because it also plays into this victory point scoring. So again, it's not going anywhere, and the expansion is going to end up my collection in short time, probably before the end of 2022. I hope. Gosh, I don't know when the other game's coming out. Anyway, the game number one, in case you completely forgot, in case you have not heard me espouse it numerous times, with the previously mentioned, aforementioned cube dropping, is The Loop. It's still in my collection. It is one of the best cooperative games. It probably edges out even maybe Spirit Island. Probably not, though, let's be honest. But more so maybe in the chance that it would even have against Spirit Island, because it's just lower overhead and it's shorter playtime. Now, you're going to give me the only problem being Catch-Up Games is not putting out an expansion for it in English. The French expansion, I believe, is already released over in Europe, but we're waiting now, apparently, because Catch-Up Games is not going to do the English version that has, if you look at this very closely, this is Dr. Fu, not Dr. Foe, like Pandasaurus changed it to. And apparently, Catch-Up Games is not going to be putting out a Dr. Fu version, so it's only going to be Pandasaurus's Dr. Foe version, and the version is like Foezilla. So you're adding this like kaiju Godzilla monster and another couple of characters to play with, and a little bit more of an amazing, amazing freaking game. People don't like it because you're dropping cubes, and the cubes can't always be controlled into what area they're going into, but it is an amazing game. There was a reason it was my best game of 2020. It's that good. It's never going anywhere. This is probably top 10 game of all time. And it's, again, there you go. So that is my revisionist review of the top 10 games for 2020 and where are they now for me. Obviously, I'm getting a little bit better at picking things that I like and that are staying there, because there's only one of these games not in my collection, and there's really only about two others that I would even be maybe tempted to leave. So I must be doing something right. Let me know. Obviously, a lot of you are newer and not around when I first made this list, so let me know what you think. Let me know, if there's other things that should have been known about, or other things that should be on my radar, or just how you feel about some of these games in particular, because maybe some of these games are newer to you in 2021, or maybe you should be checking out some of these newer ones, Glenmore 2, for yourself in 2022. So there you go. Those are my thoughts looking back just over a year. Thanks for watching. Stay classy. See you around. Have a great week. It's going to be a good one this week, I think. It's going to be cold. It's going to be real cold. I am going to go read The Law of Root after I finish filming this. Bedtime material right there, folks. Yeah, I'm psyched. I'm pumped. Like a little hyped toad gif. That's all I got. The steampunk-esque aesthetic, the steampunk-esque aesthetic